Welcome to the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy, wife, mother of two and devoted homemaker. Join me on this journey as we explore the beauty of slow and simple living, where life unfolds at its own unhurried pace. I'll take you through my experiences of slowing down, tending to our allotment plot, finding joy in the little things and making the most of our small home. Together we'll learn to live in harmony with the ever-changing seasons, discovering the magic that lies in embracing the present moment. So let's embark on this enriching adventure towards a more intentional and fulfilling life. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy and I am your host for this podcast, and as true to my word, back when I restarted the podcast back in October, this is going to be the last episode until sometime in the new year. And that's because I decided, if you hadn't listened to some earlier episodes and you're just landing here, that is because I have decided that, for 3 years I've been doing this podcast and I love it. I do love it. I do love sitting down and getting time to talk. But it is not the main thing in my life. The main thing in my life is being a mum and being a home educator. Something that I love. I love having this for me. I really do. I love running my business. But I decided that the constant grind of podcasting every single week was just becoming too much in this current season of my life. So I had a rethink and I decided that the best thing I could do was actually divide the podcast in 4, and I will do 4 seasons per year of around 8 to 10 episodes, and that will give me ample time for breaks as well, because rest is not just to be earned. It is a right, and I feel like I can't show up here, tell you about slow living and simplifying your life and all of that jazz, and then not do it myself. That would make me a fraud. So, I am very much walking the walk with you. So I am going to end the podcast. This episode will be the last one for a while. We're all going to go off. We're going to enjoy the rest of December and Christmas and New Year. And I will return in the new year with some new stuff, and we will go from there. So today's episode is going to be a bit of an end of year reflection and a way that we can think about how we're going to close out the year with intention. Now, it's a busy season. Christmas is all around, and we're already getting drowned in it. But there's something really sacred about December if we let it be. So beyond all the noise and the pressure to perform or perfect the festive season, December really holds this stillness that invites reflection. And I think it is a pause before the calendar turns. And so for me, the final stretch of the year is never about setting goals or doing this new year, new me energy. I am not here for resolutions that are rooted in guilt or the idea that who I am now isn't good enough. I'm not about that. This season is about integration. It is about looking back on the previous year of 2025 with kindness, and about closing the year on purpose, and about stepping into the next one from a place of intention and not expectation. So I want today's episode to be a gentle invitation for you to slow down, to take stock, and to reflect deeply on the year that has been. And to begin dreaming, of course, but in a really grounded way, and not chasing more for the sake of it, but just asking, what do I want more of in my days? What do I want less of? What actually matters to me now? Because you are not the same person you were 1 year ago when we had this conversation before. So let's be honest. The world loves a shiny success story. But for most of us, we are just craving meaning, normality, presence, peace, and a quality of life that you can really feel in your bones, not something that can be ticked off a list. And I always begin my end of year reflection by looking backwards and not forwards. That alone is a bit of a rebellion in this culture, because we're always told to keep moving, to do more, be more, improve. But before I set a single intention for the next year ahead, I always want to ask myself, what did this past year really hold for me? What changed? What stayed the same? Where did I grow, even if no one else saw it? And it's not about achievements or productivity, but about noticing those quieter wins, the invisible stuff, the stuff that didn't make it to Instagram, but still really mattered deeply. Maybe it's things like the boundaries you upheld, or the relationships you nurtured, or the days you showed up when you didn't really feel like it. Maybe it's the mornings you got out of bed when things felt really heavy, or the nights you chose to rest over an obligation, or the ways you stayed rooted in yourself even when life around you felt really wobbly. And I also want to ask, what felt heavy this year? Was there something you carried too long? Were there things you said yes to out of guilt instead of alignment? And this isn't about being having self-criticism of ourselves. It's about clarity. Because if we want the next year to feel different, we need to understand what has weighed us down in this one. And I don't just mean stuff on the calendar. I mean habits and internal stories and the internal pressures. Sometimes I find I've been clinging to ideas of who I should be that maybe I'm just really ready to lay down now. And I often sit and think about these questions and just let them simmer quietly while I walk or I potter around our flat. And you don't need a ritual, you just need space to reflect on them, because reflection just needs some time that isn't filled, which is why I build that into our rhythm in December, where we intentionally slow down and we say no to the extra things and we just protect our time. And this is also a time of year where I look at our home life and I ask, is this rhythm still serving us? What parts of our home education worked well over the last year? Where did we struggle? What do we want to carry forward? What do we want to release? And I talk to the kids about it too, and we reflect together, because we're on this journey together, and I want them to know that reflection is just part of a full life, and it's not something we do out of obligation, but something we kind of lean into. And I also check myself around my work, around this. I started this episode today by saying, I realised some things this year about the way I work and how it doesn't necessarily always work for me. Something that has worked for me in previous years completely fine, I have found that this year didn't really work for me at all. And at the beginning of the year, I already had the idea. So when I reflected at the end of last year, I had worked incredibly hard on the podcast, and I had worked with a lot of guests. I loved it. I did a guest episode every other week for, the whole previous year, I think, and beyond. And I found a really difficult patch of time where I was just about, I was in a recording season, so I was recording multiple times a week with guests so that I could batch record and then I could put them out slowly as the time went on. And I love doing that. I love the fact that I get to talk to some absolutely incredible people on this podcast. But I had to do it through a particularly difficult season of my life when I really was needed in other areas. When my mother-in-law was unwell and passed away, I was right in the middle of recording season. And, that then, I pulled away from recording, and of course my guests were fine about that, of course they were, and I just felt like it wasn't doable for me to put myself and my family through that schedule of such intense recording seasons. It just didn't work, and so I decided that the best thing I could do was to maybe drop having guests for a bit and just be myself here on the podcast. And like I say, I love talking to guests. I really, really enjoyed it, and I've toyed with the idea, should I do that again? I'm just not in that season, and it's okay. So that was my reflection at the end of last year, and halfway through the year this year, I was like, it's still not quite working for me, the way I've got things set up and the way I structure my year, and the way I work and the way my brain works. And so, I decided sort of middle of the year that the best thing to do, like I opened this episode with, was to flick to a different schedule. Maybe that will be permanent, maybe it won't. Maybe I'll go back to, every week when time allows. But the season that I'm in now, it doesn't support me working how I used to. And it's just about checking in with things. So, when I check in with myself around my work, it's not about what I'm creating, but how I feel while I'm doing it. Am I aligned? Am I connected? Am I leaving enough space for my own life and my own creativity? Is my work supporting the kind of days I want to live, or is it taking over? And that question, like, does this support the kind of life I want to live, is the golden thread in all of this. Because when we step into a new year, it is so easy to get swept up in the pressure to grow and expand and achieve. But I want to invite you to maybe have a different approach, a softer one maybe, one that centers your quality of life over quantity of outcomes, and one that says if this isn't making my life feel richer and deeper and more connected, then maybe it's not worth chasing. So as we head towards the end of the year and into a new one, I want you to think about how you might set your goals for the year ahead. And instead of setting those really rigid goals or attaching yourself to metrics, try asking yourself things like this. Like, what do I want to feel more of this year? What kind of energy do I want to bring into my days? How do I want to show up in my relationships? And what rhythms will support my well-being, not just my productivity? And this is the real true heart of intentional living. It's not about doing more, but doing what matters most. That is the key to it. And doing it in a way that honors your energy and your values and what I was just talking about, your season of life. And so for me, that means fewer goals. It means less performance. It means more presence. It means choosing contentment over comparison, even when the rest of the world says I should want more. It means staying rooted in our small space, in our slow life, in the beautiful ordinariness of it all, and remembering that this that I've built here is enough. And it means reconnecting with my family, with myself, with nature, even in the cold and damp. I don't want to wait for January to get clear. I want to start now in December, when the world is quiet enough for me to hear myself think. When the light fades, when its stillness is here, and everything in me is urging myself to rest, reflect, and reset. And so, if you're listening to this and you too feel overwhelmed by the end of year noise, or by pressure to plan or fix or reinvent yourself, I want you to know this. You don't need to overhaul your life. You don't need a color-coded plan. You just need to pause and listen to yourself and ask yourself better questions. And trust that the answers don't all have to come at once. Like I just told you, I thought I had all the answers for how my podcast was going to go at the end of last year. I thought I had evaluated enough and that I knew where things were working and where things weren't. And I thought I knew how I wanted to go forward. And then 6 months later, there I was, sitting there saying, this still isn't working for me and I need to make a change. So the answers don't have to come all at once. You don't have to run into January and have it all figured out. So close your year with gentleness. Say goodbye to it with gratitude. Don't feel guilt over what went before, and just enter the new year not from a place of lack, but from a place of enoughness. And choose your intention over ambition, and prioritize your depth over speed. Because when we live from that place, everything changes. And it's not because we've made it happen through any kind of force, but because we have made space for it through presence. And so that's what I want you to take into the new year. A softer landing and a slower, deeper start. It's another short one from me today, but I know this is the season of excess and busyness, and you probably don't have a huge amount of time on your hands. I just want to say thank you for listening to this current season of the Slow Living Collective. It has been an honour to be in your earbuds once again and figure out how this is working for me in this season of life. And I really hope that this episode, peeled back the onion skin, if you will, of how we don't always get it right. And sometimes we just have to ebb and flow and figure out where the most important things lie in our life. So again, thank you so much for sticking with me through this season and all the previous parts of the Slow Living Collective podcast. I want to wish you the most merriest of Christmas if you celebrate, and a wonderful, wonderful new year. I will see you sometime in January. I'm going to have a wonderful break and I am going to enjoy it with my family, and I hope you do the same. I hope it's everything you wish for. I hope if you're looking for a slower, simpler season that you are able to achieve that. And remember, you don't have to have it all figured out in the new year. Come from a place of enoughness. Evaluate what you have already achieved in the last year or years, what worked for you, what didn't, and where you want to go next. It doesn't have to be hard, fast, and rigid. You know, it can actually just be slow and simple and intentional, and it can ebb and flow. So thank you so much for sticking with me, and thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I will still be over on Instagram until the new season starts, so be sure to check me out over there. I'm over on Instagram at The Slow Living Collective, and you can find me also on Substack, theslowlivingcollective.substack.com. Thank you again, and I can't wait to speak to you in 2026. What? Still feels like the year 2000, doesn't it really? So I will see you in 2026.